Hey guys, and welcome back to New Earth Alchemy, where we're trying to manifest a better life for ourselves and for everybody else as well. Collective consciousness, because things are easier when you work together. This is how we got the world. We work together to create the world that we have now, and we can work together to uncreate it into something more desirable. So today I want to talk to all of the perfectionists in the room. So if you don't identify as a perfectionist, you can stick around if you want to help support your friends who are perfectionists, the people you love, your family members and whatnot. But to the perfectionists in the room, I want to introduce you to the concept of good enough is good enough. Perfectionism is a trauma response, oftentimes due to never feeling enough as a child. Perhaps your caregivers were unpleasable no matter what you did, no matter what you tried. Or perhaps you grew up in chaos and you so desperately don't want to repeat that pattern that you've overcorrected into this new perfectionist type pattern. Maybe it had nothing to do with your caregivers and upbringing at all, and it was just society and culture throwing high expectations at you that at all of us, that none of us could ever possibly come. They're unrealistic. I saw a compilation the other day of interviews that took place in the 90s of the people who were doing the interview of these celebrities, and instead of focusing on their achievements or the movies that they had done or their music or anything like that, it was just 100% focused on their weight or their physical appearance in some other way. The caption read, "We never stood a chance." But regardless to how you gained this personality trait, let's discuss how to ungain it, because we don't want it. It's doing nothing for us but holding us back and keeping us small because it's based in fear. You can't do something wrong if you don't do anything, and no one can criticize you if you stay in the background, waiting until you're quote-unquote ready. Ready to post, ready to hit publish, ready to do the thing that you've always wanted to do but aren't. Because it has to be perfect first, right? You have to be better. You have to be perfect so that nobody criticizes it. But think about that for a second. It's literally illogical. No matter how good you are, there are always going to be people who don't like what you're doing. Name a single famous person that nobody has any problems with. You can't find one. Even Steve Irwin, a lot of people feel like he should have just killed that stingray and kept on teaching us about animals. Pretty sure Mr. Roger had some haters in his day because he was breaking all sorts of cultural and social barriers. Maybe your perfectionism doesn't reside in crafts, like your craft and anything you want to do in the world or put out in the world. Maybe instead yours is based around physical appearance. Also illogical, because please explain to me what a perfect physical appearance is on anyone. You may have a picture that popped in your head, but there's going to be people in the world that don't like that think aspects of that are gross or not their cup of tea. I remember when I was growing up, my mom telling me one time about this girl that was in my school and how my mom was like, "That is the most beautiful little girl I've ever seen in my life." And I kid you not, I spent the rest of my days looking at this girl and trying to figure out and trying to see how my mother saw her, because that was not anywhere near the opinion I shared on said person. And that probably feels like the meanest thing I've ever said on the podcast, but I don't mean it like that. It's just an opinion. Everybody has an opinion and everybody has a preference. And when you have billions of people in the world with their own different opinion and preference on things, perfectionism is not a thing. It's not, because whose version of perfect are you going by? And you can be like, "Well, Savannah, I'm going off my own version of perfectionism and how I feel like I should look." And okay, fair enough, but is that the healthiest thing to do to yourself? Because honestly, if you're not happy with how you look now, you're never going to be happy with how you look. Because even if you lose the weight, gain the muscle, get the tan, whatever it is, there's always going to be something else that is bothering you about yourself, because at the end of the day, it's never actually about your physical appearance. It's a lot deeper than that. And honestly, if we're going by the rules of manifestation and law of attraction and all of that good jazz, if you learn how to love yourself the way you are right now, then you will naturally begin to morph into the version that is better for you. Because nothing looks better on anybody like confidence does. Confidence makes even the most unattractive people attractive. Healthy, happy confidence, not egotistical cockiness, to be clear. But I don't think any of us here in this room have an issue with that one. Maybe your perfectionism isn't on either of those scales. Maybe it's like the cleanliness of your house. I used to have to clean my house so ferociously if someone was coming over that my standards were you could literally get down and lick my floor and be totally okay. I also did not have pets in the house at that time, so it was a little bit easier. I also didn't have children at that time, so it was a little bit easier. And my first house was a relatively very small house, so it was pretty easy to clean every nook and cranny, often. But trust me, the people who are coming over, if they're going to judge the cleanliness of your house, they're going to do that no matter how clean it is, no matter how dirty it is. The people who are going to judge you are going to judge you regardless of what you do. And you really don't need that type of people in your life, no way. That's not helpful, and that uses up our energy reserves that are precious and should be going towards that which makes us happy and healthy, because life is too short. We really don't have time to stress out and worry about all these things that are not helping us get to our goals. Have you seen those reels on Instagram and TikTok? That the one that comes to mind specifically is a song, and it starts out like, I'm a productive bitch. And then the whole video is her doing things like organizing her silverware drawer and doing nitpicky, mundane things and getting absolutely nothing done that was actually on her list. Productive procrastination. That's a form of perfectionism. When the truth is that our homes can never be perfect, especially the more people you have living with you. Which granted, the more people you have living with you, the more teamwork you should have in keeping things up. And if you're not implementing and encouraging and demanding the teamwork of the individuals in your household to upkeep the things, then I'm disappointed in everyone. You got to create some boundaries around that, some standards around that. Perhaps I should have broken down this episode into 3 separate episodes and targeted each form of perfectionism specifically. Are there more forms of perfectionism? Let me know if you can think of a different form of perfectionism out of these 3. Perhaps people-pleasing is a form of perfectionism as well. Please remember, we cannot be everything for everyone, but gosh, do they want us to be. And to break the cycle of that, the perpetuation of that, is where we have to be everything we need for ourselves. We have to fulfill our own needs. We have to love ourselves, care for ourselves, feed ourselves, be our best friend, hang out with us. We have to fill us up first, and then everything else is extra. And if you can do that, all of your relationships will get a whole lot better, except for the ones that needed to go work on themselves too. Those might get a little worse or start to fall away, but the trade-off is that you're going to feel a whole lot better. People will drain you dry if you let them. And we try to accumulate more and more people because we're trying to fulfill the needs that we have within us with other people, and we want other people to fulfill those needs for us. But if you fulfill your own needs first, then you need less people, and then you start to realize that a handful or less is plenty. Anything more than that starts to get a little more complicated. We want quality, not quantity. But to backtrack and recap and come back around to the enough is enough perfectionism healing stuff, it may be helpful for you to analyze your own type of perfectionism, backtracking it to where it started and where it came from. What beliefs are surrounding those tendencies for the decisions and choices that you're making? Who gave you those? Where did they come from? They most likely were not yours to begin with. Did you grow up hearing someone nitpick everybody else? Was it on TV? Bullies from school? Past relationships? You most likely have lots of different belief systems around all of these that came from lots of different situations and scenarios and just piled up on top of themselves to create you as a whole. Backtracking and analyzing that will show you that it was never actually a part of you in the first place. It's just become a part of you. You've started to identify as that. You want, when someone thinks of you, to think of how clean your house is, or how pretty you are, or what a great artist you are. You're seeking external validation as an effort for self-preservation, because historically it wasn't safe to be yourself. But now it can be. People don't generally burn you at the stake anymore if you're a little bit odd. The village doesn't ostracize you to the point that you're probably going to die on your own if you don't fit in. But historically, that was the case. You know, we needed the village to like us or we would die, probably, most likely, on our own. Humans need one another to live, like, to literally not die. But less so now than we did in the past, which means that we're literally programmed to need, desire that external validation and approval of the village, of the people around us. If people liked us, they would help us not die. They would, help us with the food in the winter and the warmth of the building of the houses and the tending to the gardens and crops. Everything was a collective effort when we lived in villages. So if it feels next to impossible, if it feels completely impossible to overcome your perfectionist tendencies, just know that it's not your fault. It's in your programming. It's in your DNA to need that external validation. So when we're talking about getting over perfectionism and focusing on internal validation instead, do know that we are going completely counter to how we are originally programmed. It's against our nature, and that's why it's so hard. But hard doesn't mean impossible, and we just have to chip away at it a little bit at a time. And that starts with, for one, analyzing your specific type, backtracking that and the beliefs tied to it and where they came from. From there, you have to create new, better, more helpful beliefs. And I say all the time, the beliefs don't have to be true, they just have to be helpful. But they also can't be a lie, We've talked about this before, where you, doing affirmations, for example, you can't be like, I'm a billionaire, because your whole body, your whole being, your whole self, every cell in your body screams lie, lies, which in turn is focusing on the opposite of what you want. You're not actually focusing, you're not actually manifesting money in abundance when you do that. You're manifesting the lack of, because that's the type of energy that your body is like, that's activated within there, and you get the energy that you put out, not necessarily the words, even though the words are hugely impactful and powerful. Very important. Maybe in this case, a affirmation that would be helpful would be something like, it's okay. It's okay. Enough is enough. Good enough is good enough. Perfectionism isn't a thing. Or it's a thing. Perfect is not a thing. Perfect is not real. I can afford to relax a little bit. I deserve to relax a little bit. I am going to be more abundant the more I can learn how to relax. I am only one person, and that's okay. But it means you're going to have to cut yourself some slack in some areas. Have you sat down and figured out your values and priorities yet? Your values, okay? Because sometimes for example, if your children are your values and priorities, if your family is your values and priorities, you might just, to be able to fulfill that the way you want to, the way that sits well with your soul, you may have to let the house go for a little bit. I'm always reminding myself that my children are going to grow faster than I realize it. And so I better soak up and be present now and cherish every moment now that I have with them, because sooner rather than later, they're going to be grown, and then they're not going to be around as much. And I don't want to think back and be like, man, I don't remember much from when you were 6, baby. I'm sorry. I was very busy at that time in my life because I was too stressed out trying to keep up with laundry for 4 people and dishes for 6, 7 people, both of which are a never-ending job. You have to be realistic with the standards and expectations that you put on yourself. Maybe make a quota a day, a productive quota for the day. If I can get these 3 things done, then I consider it a successful day. And anything I do after that, I'm free to do more after that if I want to, but I'm also free to do things I want to do after that also, because I've already fulfilled my productivity quota for the day. We've been talking about boundaries and how to set them for yourself and for other people. Maybe learning how to delegate the workload, which means learning how to communicate with those that are in your life with your expectations, what you want done, what you value. Maybe y'all can sit down together and figure out where your values and priorities cross and where they don't, especially with those within your household. Because again, we are village creatures. We need the numbers, and the more numbers we have, the easier things are. Like for the caretaking of life and whatnot. Now, it does present a lot of problems with, or complications and challenges in the relationship areas. But that's what we're doing here is, trying to heal ourselves so that we can respond better to people and each other and navigate conflict a little smoother, which teaches other people how to do the same and creates the ripples that we're looking for. This is how we bring peace to earth, is learning how to navigate and regulate our own patterns and emotions so that others can, we can lead by example and show others how to also manage their emotions and navigate their patterns towards better patterns, choosing better patterns and better programming, how to program our mind, yada, yada, all of that. Instead of just cutting everybody off with a red flag, because again, I've said this 1,000 times, everybody's got red flags somewhere. Nobody's perfect. And if we're constantly cutting everybody off without a second chance, then for one, we're lonely and miserable and depressed, and we're not helping anybody or anything. And for two, nobody's learning anything. We're not learning how to get along and how to do better. Again, boundaries and communication and boundaries, because some people aren't going to catch the hint. They're not going to learn anything. The unpleasable will always be unpleasable until they notice that they are unpleasable and decide to do better. And most of them are too busy projecting their own insecurities and crap and patterns onto everybody around them that they're not going to notice that it's them that's the issue, because it's never them is the issue. It's always everybody else is the issue. Something that helped me overcome my perfectionist tendencies a lot was this one friend that I had for a while was a complete and total slob, for lack of better words. I mean, I'm not trying to talk crap about nobody, but on average, I'm a 200% or nothing type of person. So like, if you don't want complete and utter dedication, don't bring it to me at all. If I pursue anyone or anything, it's marriage or bust. Till death do us part, yo. And I'm talking not only relationships, but like, my business, grocery shopping, cleaning. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? I'm a 200% or nothing type of person. And this person was like, their absolute best was maybe 20%, because they just really did not care at all about anything. So anytime I found myself beating myself up for relaxing or toning it back a little bit, you know how we beat ourselves up for holding our own boundaries that we set. Anytime I noticed I was doing that, I would just think back to them and how even at my worst, I'm still 75%. And that allowed me to relax a little bit. Now, saying that, you should never, ever, 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 ever compare yourself to others. But if it helps, it helps. Also, I'm not being judgy at all. Live your life how you want to live your life. I don't care. As long as it doesn't affect me and mine. Free, land of the free. But everything really does come back to conscious awareness. Being the pilot in charge all the time, not turning on autopilot if you can help it. We all turn on autopilot sometimes without realizing it, and we just kind of hang out there for a while because that's just what people do. It's what humans do. But in order to heal, in order to reprogram your subconscious and all of that, create better beliefs, find beliefs and mindsets that are going to help you manifest the future that you want. Every single bit of it comes down to conscious awareness. Just awareness to what you're thinking and doing and saying 24/7 around the clock as often as you can, and making purposeful, intentional, mindful, in the moment decisions every day, all the time, at every opportunity, because that's how we got to where we are now, and that's also how we flip it around and get somewhere different. So when you notice these thoughts come up, you go, wait a minute, no, and then you correct them. And a lot of us beat ourselves up for not being perfect about that. It's like, oh man, I beat myself up again. No, look, you're just noticing it. You're noticing it. And just kind of like when you do something, like you snap on someone, instead of just sitting there and like throwing your ego up, and you gotta apologize. You gotta like, wait a sec, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Please excuse my subconscious programming. Let me try that again. You just course correct. And that's why I talk about moving very slowly, slowing everything down, learning to breathe, learning to create space in between the thoughts, in between the words, in between the actions, so that you can be more purposeful, more intentional, more mindful with what you say, act, do, think, all yada, 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 yada. To where eventually it does become subconscious programming, and then you're just automatically doing it. And the hard becomes easy and innate and second nature. And then everything starts to manifest and improve, and your nervous system is relaxing, and you're less anxious and stressed out, and you're more secure in yourself, and you're beginning to like who you are and love who you are. And the more you can get to that point and fall into a sense of ease and peace and flow, and everything just starts to fall into place. And you find that people's comments no longer bother you, and you don't really care what people think, because you like you. You know that you have the best interest at heart. You know that your heart is pure and golden, and you mean the best for everybody involved. And you know you're doing your best, and you're kind. And anybody who thinks otherwise, they don't actually know you. They're probably projecting their own insecurities and judgments of themselves onto you. And they should probably go do some shadow work or therapy or something. Learn some of this psychology stuff. Address their inner traumas and heal. So anyway, good luck with all of that. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you want to discuss this personally with me. You can always message me, email me. I'm really easy to get a hold of. I have stickers in the shop with affirmations and stuff if you want some reminders to stick where you can see them often. Because for real, all of this stuff is super simple. The hardest part is remembering to do it in the moment, because life gets busy and we get distracted and we forget for a while, and then you come back to it and you're like, oh, why have I not been doing this? It's so simple. I forgot because life got busy. And that stickers can be useful. Affirmation stickers can be pretty useful. But good job making it to the end of this episode. The magic is in the implementation, okay? Because we can read all the books, we can listen to all the podcasts, we can know all of the things, but if we're not putting them into practice, that does nothing. So, until next week, I love you so much. Namaste.